Elon Musk's SpaceX just won a very large court battle. It appears that the 4680 structural battery packs are making really good progress, and Tesla getting to 20 million vehicles per year has been equated to the Manhattan Project. Let's take a look. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I actually kind of wanted to do a video today on 10.69.1 release and actually doing some driving, but I haven't got it yet. I have heard that not very many people have at this point, so I'm sort of keeping my fingers crossed that maybe tonight it'll pop up. And of course I will do a first drive video on that when that comes out. In the meantime, here are some articles that people I think have kind of overlooked with the whole SLS thing. The first one is the one with the most import, even though I haven't seen anyone except Evelyn Arevalo and Tasmanian talk about this, but Starlink won a Court of Appeals battle against Dish Network and ViaSat. If you don't know what's going on, Dish Network and ViaSat have been fighting very, very hard to take the spectrum back from Starlink, which was approved by the FCC, I believe in 2019 and then again in 2021. But Tesla was given a big chunk of spectrum in order to do their Starlink satellites. And obviously, if you don't have dedicated spectrum, you don't have the ability to be able to transmit and receive signals back and forth from Earth. So it's a rather important thing. So it's a very, very great import. Also, interestingly enough, if you do own a Starlink dish receiver, you'll notice that they tend to face pretty much north, due north. They don't really face west or south. And I believe one of the big reasons is because a Dish Network stationary satellite over the United States is hanging up there in geostationary orbit, and it's kind of broadcasting from that general direction, which means that the Starlink satellites have to point a different direction. So it's already interfering with what's going on with Starlink. But basically, at least according to SpaceX, ViaSat and Dish Network were trying to absorb the rest of this spectrum and make it so that Starlink couldn't compete with them. Because, of course, in addition to their cable broadcasts and stuff, they also do a lot of remote internet. Their remote internet is rather poor because it's got really, really big ping times and relatively slow upload and download speeds. So it's not competitive at all with Starlink. So there's a reason why Dish Network and ViaSat are attacking this, even though what they say is it's a safety thing. It's really not a safety thing. Anyway, let's read this article. So we start with the most important part. SpaceX won the legal battle against Dish Network and ViaSat over operating the Starlink satellite constellation at a lower altitude in low Earth orbit, or LEO. In 2020, SpaceX submitted an application with the US FCC to modify the operational altitudes of 2,824 Starlink satellites from altitudes between 1,100 kilometers to 1,300 kilometers down to 540 to 570 kilometers. So basically having the distance that they are above the Earth. The plan to decrease the altitude of the satellites faced strong opposition from competitors, including Dish Network, ViaSat, Amazon, and OneWeb, all of whom are competitors, by the way. In April 2021, the FCC approved SpaceX's plan to change the satellites' altitudes. Even though it says launch here, they meant change the satellites' altitudes, and the company has since launched nearly 2/3 of the 4,408 satellites that are part of SpaceX's phase 1 of the Starlink broadband constellation, which will be deployed into different orbital parameters detailed in a table below. Dish Network and ViaSat then engaged in a legal battle against the FCC's decision to approve SpaceX's altitude modification. Anyway, the important part here is April 2021, the FCC approved SpaceX's plan, and then SpaceX went on to launch a bunch of satellites. So they're in it really deep in terms of financial and also just basically the parameters of what they're trying to do. They've set this all up based on FCC approval. So getting it removed would have been an absolute killer for SpaceX and for Starlink. Actually, honestly, it could have bankrupted the company. So this is actually huge, huge news. Continuing on Friday, August 26th, the US Court of Appeals upheld the FCC's decision to approve SpaceX's Starlink deployment plans. Then there's a ViaSat quote, "We believe that the court's decision is a setback for both space safety and environmental protection." I love how they talk about this stuff. That's not why they're arguing about this. Anyway, ViaSat representatives said this in a press statement after losing the appeal. Had the court forced the FCC to properly grapple with the complicated issues surrounding deployment of mega constellations in low Earth orbit, we believe harmful impacts that otherwise may persist for decades or even centuries to come could have been avoided. ViaSat and Dish Network believe that the Starlink constellation of thousands of satellites would increase risk of collision with other spacecraft in orbit. However, SpaceX's Starlink satellites are equipped with advanced technology capable of autonomously moving to avoid potential collisions. The FCC concluded in 2021 that Starlink, quote, operations at the lower altitude will have beneficial effects with respect to orbital debris mitigation. We also find that SpaceX's modification will not present significant interference problems. Friday's court ruling found ViaSat operates only a single satellite that flies close to SpaceX's constellation, and added this theory of injury is much too speculative. And then we get this very nice table of how many different satellites are at different orbital inclinations and what altitudes they're orbiting at. So this is actually great, and you can certainly pause the video for a minute and look at that if you're interested. But the upshot of this is that the satellites are actually safer at lower altitudes because if, God forbid, something bad does happen, there's a pretty decent amount of atmospheric interference at that altitude. So the higher you get, the more distance you go away from the Earth, the less atmosphere there is. Now, obviously, it's like a vacuum in the sense that you would die if you took off your space helmet or something. So for a human being, obviously it's a vacuum, and it's relatively close to a vacuum, but there are a lot of molecules of air that are still up there, so it will slow things down. So basically over time, if nothing is done, these altitudes will collapse and the satellites or potentially debris will actually fall back into the Earth much more quickly. So it's actually much safer to have them at 500 plus kilometers rather than 1,000 plus kilometers. It will make the debris mitigation much, much better. And of course, ViaSat and Dish Network's argument that this is unsafe is kind of a BS argument. What they're really concerned about is the fact that they will not be competitive because this internet is already way, way faster than their internet services. So they're losing. So, if you're losing in a competitive environment, the thing you do is you sue. But it's really, really good news that the Court of Appeals has upheld the FCC decision and made it safe for SpaceX and for their Starlink satellites. So that's gigantic news. All right, so this tweet from Elon Musk popped up after I finished recording the video, but I wanted to add this as a small addendum to the video. I think it's important and actually does pertain to 10.69 full self-driving release. First of all, tech geek Tesla, which is hard to pronounce actually, weirdly enough. I had to do that 3 times to get that to work. Anyway, John Harrity apparently has done a really nice extensive test, kind of simulating Dan O'Dowd's situation where they tried to run over a fake child and everything. But anyway, this is a really good video. Highly recommend it. I'll try to remember to put a link to this in the description as well. But in addition to this, we've got Elon Musk saying 10.69.1, which just came out yesterday/today to not that many people yet again, is even better. We reduce latency and jitter in hardware command loops, so time from object detection to brake actuation is 10% to 20% better. So, I talk about a lot of this kind of stuff in my release notes videos, and you can check out my 10.69 release notes if you're interested and you haven't seen that yet. But anyway, all of these kinds of things that they can do, if they can reduce hardware types of things, but the important outcome here is what's highlighted in blue. Brake actuation is 10 to 20% better. So that means in 10.69.1, they've got this thing worked out so that it will brake 10 to 20% faster and more effectively than the old version did. So every single one of these things, that's not a small increase, right? That's not like 1% or something. That's 10 to 20% better than the previous best-in-class performance. And 10 to 20% is exactly the kind of thing that could actually save lives or save people's health, right? So instead of hitting somebody and breaking their legs, or hitting the neighbor's dog and causing an emotional tragedy, or hitting somebody and actually killing them, all of those things would be terrible. If you can brake 10 to 20% more effectively, that's the kind of thing that can actually save people's healths, people's emotions, and even people's lives. So I felt this was important enough to call this out specifically. Turning from that to some apparently good news on the Tesla Giga Texas front, this Teslarati article by Simon Alvarez says Tesla Giga Texas is stocking up on 4680 structural battery packs. And I just want to scroll down to here. We've got this lovely picture here of these pallets with what definitely appear to be 4680 structural battery packs. As you'll know, if you watch the Sandy Munro teardown, there was actual structural seating units on these structural battery packs, and they're much, much thinner. And hypothetically, if one had done a Giga Texas factory tour back in early August and had happened to see some pallets like this, one might hypothetically have seen these exact things in person. So yeah, pretty cool, but there are only a couple of them, hypothetically, a month ago, and now we're looking at dozens and dozens of pallets of this. So this is really good news if this is indeed a good indication of how many of these battery packs they have. And assuming that they've put all the cells in the battery packs, considering that it's impossible to tear these things apart without basically recycling the whole thing, it'd be a reasonable assumption that these are all working structural battery packs and not just like prototypes or test units. So it appears that there are, hundreds of these things at least, and that's actually a really good sign. You don't want too much inventory backup, but obviously if we're ramping the 4680 batteries and they're getting better and they're getting more efficient at making them and they're getting better at making these structural battery packs, it's a really good sign that we have some backlog of these things so that you can keep feeding the machine to keep making new cars. And of course, a huge shout out to Joe Tegmeyer for actually taking these pictures and a whole bunch of other stuff. You should definitely subscribe to his YouTube channel and also follow him on Twitter. One other note, if you don't pay real close attention to this, is that Tesla has split off their production in Texas. They have 2170 Model Ys that they are producing. So that's the older style, that's the smaller batteries. That's what I have in my 2021 Model Y, and that's what most people have in their Model 3, Model Y, etc. These are the new structural battery packs, and they can manufacture both of these at the same time in the same factory. So that's actually super, super important. So these are important for the future, but they're not critical to right now. So the more Tesla can make of these 4680 structural battery packs, the better, but it's not going to put them out of business if it takes them till like 2023 to ramp up production. So anyway, on to the article. During the Q2 2022 earnings call, Elon Musk was quick to note that Tesla is not dependent on its 4680 cells yet, which I just discussed. Model Ys are being produced in Texas, but only some of them are equipped with 4680 battery packs. Those that are not equipped with 4680 battery packs are fitted with the company's 2170 cells, similar to the Model Ys produced in Fremont. Recent aerial photographs taken at the Gigafactory Texas complex suggest that Tesla is gaining some ground in its effort to ramp up production of 4680 structural battery packs for its best-selling all-electric crossover. Shared by Giga Texas observer and drone operator Joe Tegmeyer, so hey, the images showed a large number of 4680 structural battery packs being stored in one of Giga Texas's upper floors. And then we get another picture where you can actually see some more detail about this. So there's a lot of empty pallets back there, but there are a lot of full pallets as well. The images of the 4680 structural packs at Giga Texas inspired a number of speculations from the EV community, some of whom suggested that the battery packs were likely being assembled in the facility in Texas. This speculation makes quite a bit of sense, as Tesla's pilot production plant for its next generation cells at Cato Road in Fremont, California, which is where the original 4680s were made, appears to be focused on producing 4680 cells, not the whole structural battery pack. And of course, as we might expect, the sighting of the structural battery pack at Giga Texas bodes well for Tesla's 4680 ramp. Tesla has been pretty understated with the progress of its 4680 program, which is very true, with Elon Musk and other Tesla executives simply noting that the next generation cells will be relevant in the coming year. Still, it's very exciting and encouraging to see the battery packs filling up some portions of Giga Texas today. So all in all, not super critical news at this point, but it's really, really nice to see these 4680 structural battery packs starting to appear in large quantities. That's a very, very positive development. And finally, thinking about the future a little bit, Tesla's 20 million EV goal for 2030 can be equated to the Manhattan Project, according to an expert. This again is by Simon Alvarez, so very nice job, with 2 articles in 2 days that are both quite interesting. For the longest time, Tesla has played the role of a disruptor, a force in the auto industry that pushes other companies to change and acknowledge the legitimacy of battery electric vehicles. But with the company's 20 million EV goal for 2030, Tesla is trying to go far beyond disruption. It's trying to fundamentally remake the global auto industry and the battery sector at the same time. I will actually point out that I believe that that's actually fundamental disruption. So yeah, I understand what Simon is saying. He's saying this is beyond what people think of as disruption, but actually what this is disruption on a massive, massive scale. So Tesla is not looking to disrupt 1 or 2 industries. It's looking to disrupt kind of the entire world. So while I understand what he's saying here, I do believe that this is still highly disruptive. It's just highly disruptive on an order of magnitude larger scale. If successful, Tesla could become the world's largest company. Chom. Billionaire investor and longtime Tesla bull Ron Barron mentioned this recently when he noted that the only company that could probably follow the EV maker is Elon Musk's private space firm SpaceX. Selling 20 million vehicles in 2030 would also make Tesla an automaker that matches Toyota and Volkswagen's sales today combined, holding about 20% of the global vehicle market. Needless to say, Tesla's goals are extremely ambitious. For the company to achieve this, Tesla should see a 14-fold increase over the estimated 1.4 million or so vehicles it's hoping to sell this year. It will also cost hundreds of billions of dollars, as per a Reuters analysis of Tesla's financial disclosures and forecasts on the electric vehicle sector as a whole. Michael Tracy of the Agile Group, a manufacturing expert, noted that Tesla's 20 million EV goal for 2030 is so ambitious it could be equated to the Manhattan Project, project, the United States' massive effort in the Second World War that paved the way to the creation of nuclear weapons. Quote, "I'd equate this with the Manhattan Project in World War II," Tracy said. So interestingly, just like SpaceX, and we talked about this before, that SpaceX is trying to do something that the entire government of the United States in the 1960s did, building the Apollo program. SpaceX all by themselves is trying to build Starship, which is a completely disruptive rocket and a completely disruptive way of doing things. So it's interestingly analogous that this expert Tracy is talking about Tesla doing what the Manhattan Project was, which was again an entire governmental supported, it was an absolutely massive undertaking with tens to hundreds of thousands of people involved in the project. And again, Tesla's trying to do this all by themselves. So it's really interesting that you've got two Elon Musk companies, Tesla and SpaceX, that are trying to do things that, a half or a century ago was being done by an entire country. Anyway, continuing on, Tesla has been growing fast, but it will have to grow at an unprecedented rate in the coming years if it wishes to hit its 2030 target. Tesla would have to construct about 7 or 8 more gigafactories every 12 months. I think that just means 7 or 8 more. Like you'd have to do one every 12 months or about one every year. In the coming years, it would also need to secure about 30 times as much battery capacity to supply its operations. Reuters estimated it would cost an estimated $400 billion over the next 8 years to build Tesla's manufacturing footprint across the globe and another $200 billion to build or purchase batteries. Benchmark Mineral Intelligence, which tracks the worldwide EV battery segment, noted that Tesla would likely have to secure 2 million tons of lithium, 1.3 million tons of nickel, 0.2 million tons of cobalt, and 3.5 million tons of graphite to support its 20 million EV goal in 2030. This is about 4 times as much lithium and nickel, about twice as much cobalt, and 7 times as much graphite as the entire electric vehicle segment is looking to consume this year. So it's a lot. Their appetite is huge. Tesla has been busy pursuing its ambitious 2030 goal. Former Tesla executives interviewed by the publication noticed that Tesla has started signing offtake agreements with miners and refiners over a decade ago. The former Tesla executives reportedly noted that the company currently has deals with over 20 material suppliers across the globe. While experts today have stated that the raw material capacity needed to support Tesla's 20 million EV goal for 2030 does not exist for now, the electric vehicle maker has a reputation, and well-deserved, for having great foresight. It may seem inconceivable now, but Tesla was considered insane in the past when it decided to build Gigafactory Nevada to prepare for the Model 3's ramp. Back then, experts also questioned whether such a massive investment was warranted because the demand for EVs was still uncertain. But as history would show, Tesla was eventually proven right. So all in all, this is an interesting article because it shows the scale and the scope of what Tesla's trying to do. Now, I do have a caveat about this, and I actually talked about this recently. I'll link this here and put it at the end of the video. But basically, my thought is that Tesla's going to go all in on robo-taxis if at all possible. And that means that they will not have to build as many vehicles as what they're talking about right now, because these vehicles will be able to drive somewhere between 5 times and 7 times the amount that normal vehicles do, right? So if we drive our cars about 10% of the time, these will be able to operate at 60 to 70% of the time, so we won't have to build as many cars. So anyway, we'll see what happens, but I think that's Tesla's kind of ace in the hole, is that they'll aim to get close to 20 million vehicles, but if they can only produce 10 to 15 million vehicles, but those are all autonomous, they're all robo-taxis, that will effectively be like producing 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 million vehicles. So actually they'll have a huge amount of leverage if that all works. And of course, it all comes down to whether full self-driving, whether autonomous vehicles are possible and possible in the near-term future. But regardless, it's really interesting to think about the future and how massive this undertaking is. So really interesting article. All right, I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it fun and thought-provoking and interesting. If you did, please do like the video so other people can find it. And of course, consider subscribing for more of this kind of content. Once again, a reminder that I'm going to be in San Diego on September 10th and 11th with Brian from My Tesla Weekend and Lars from Best in Tesla. We're going to do a panel together on Sunday. So definitely check it out if you're in the area. And I've got a discount code in the description if you're interested in attending. As always, a huge shout out to my patrons on Patreon. Thank you all so much for your support. I truly appreciate it. And of course, if you want to join the team, just check out the link in the description. And if you're interested in a whole bunch of really cool merch, check out our merch store. Link is in the description. We have TeslaBot t-shirts, the Tesla meme t-shirt, Success is a Possible Outcome, 4680 battery cells. All of that stuff is on t-shirts, mugs, tumblers, and on. So check it out. And for those of you interested in investing, check out WeBull, an amazing platform for buying and selling stocks, and now cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Dogecoin, and others. Open an account and get a free stock valued at up to $200, and fund your account and get another free stock valued at up to $1,600. Check out the link in the description and help the channel at the same time. Thank you. And finally, don't forget we are both Tesla and Amazon affiliates. If you look in the description, you can see how going shopping for a solar roof, a Powerwall, or anything on Amazon helps out the channel. In the meantime, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.